So then, we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then, we can understand the time of the end as per YershiYAhu the prophet. We find then the prophecies of the spring feast, the autumn feast, very true. And then the cities of the Messiah returning. We then study YershiYAhu the prophet, and many of these areas related with the time of the restoration period. We find then these prophecies extremely true. Not only this, but as then the economy of the world then is obviously in ruins, we are then facing ourselves with the question, are we then believing tabernacling or trusting in the world system? Obviously, each person must make this choice and selection. As we understand from YershiYAhu the prophet, expecting a red carpet as far as this economy is concerned of every nation of this planet, it is truly utopia. These prophecies of YershiYAhu, they are direct and extremely simple. So then, let's evaluate then Daniel the 11th chapter, and explained once again, in a second time and third time, what is going on with the economy of the world, because God himself, he is not interfering himself with these economies. Let's make this perfectly clear. If you think God has some sort of involvement with the economy of your country, you are mistaken. He has absolutely no interest in mixing himself and his holy name with the junky economies of this world. So then, as we understand the distinction of being concerned with versus being involved with, then tabernacling plays a very crucial role as we decide of more tabernacling rather than the world. Nations are more aware of there is no church. Doesn't exist. This organization was concocted from translations done wrongly. What does exist, however, are congregations, people interested in learning and reading the instructions. So then, this situation does not relate with people with great intentions, honest people, with self-initiative, reliable, trustworthy. These are great traits and should be encouraged, but they have no relation with the Creator and His presence amongst the economies of this world. So then, as people are then more knowledgeable, the instructions, they go so far as explaining anytime there is a portion of the instructions related with sin, the Creator Himself does not even mix. So let's make this perfectly clear. When then Eve got herself involved with the beast, and she said herself, when the Creator asked, she said, then the serpent deceived her, deceived me, she said. When the consequences of sin were given, those did not come from the Creator. Try to understand. The Creator in sin, they do not mix. So the judgment of pain and separation came as a decision of the enemy. Because of sin, then the enemy would then increase the pain in childbirth. The Creator Himself never gave this judgment. When the prophets were writing the instructions, every time there was a judgment related with the sin, death, and destruction, those words did not come from the Creator. Every portion of the instructions related with sin comes straight from the enemy. But he was given the authority of dictating when sin is involved. So as far as sin is concerned and the consequences thereof, when the prophet was writing, the prophet was not being guided by the Creator Himself. The enemy was given the authority of giving consequences with relation with sin. Yeah, it is important learning. So then when you read what Moshe or Moses, when he wrote those pure instructions, those were related with the Holy Creator, obviously. However, every time there was sin involved, he changed from the authority of the Creator and then given the authority of the Destroyer. When you read, you must understand and make the shift. If you mix the holy instructions and then you think when the Creator was given the instruction was coming from Him, then you are wrong. In your mind, you are screwed up. People have a tendency of globalizing the Holy Creator, making Him global, as if He was interacting with His creation every day and then You know, people are so much important that he doesn't even respect his own instructions. Some people, they think this way, because his son then died, so then his holy instructions would not be as strong as they should be. Some people, they think this way. Every time you read a section of the instructions related with the sin, destruction, consequences, you are not reading from the Creator. You are reading from the destroyer. Yet the destroyer was guiding the hand of the prophet while writing, because this authority was given. When the dream of Moshe was revealed, obviously the 10th plague that never had taken place, then there is a section related with the Creator himself going through then Egypt and destroying the firstborn. Do you think those were the words of the Creator? Do you truly think the Creator would go through and destroy the firstborn? No, he didn't, and he never would. Some people, they don't understand who the Creator is. Truly they don't. Their minds are so replete with the junk churches and so replete with the wrong translations and making their own understanding of the Creator, mixing the whole situation. And some people, they have the nerve, that person went through this because God did it. He didn't. They don't understand. The only link with the Creator in this planet is tabernacling, and yet limited. I'll give you a few examples. There are people, they go to those places named as churches, and they read from a ridiculous copy, and they claim, because then the Hebrews, they walked in a desert and their shoes were never worn out. That's the first stupidity. The second is the wife of Lot. Because then she then turned back and she became a column of salt. Second is stupidity. Third is stupidity. When they read Acts, they think themselves are some sort of a temple. Can you believe these? Moshe was given then the holy instructions in the desert, so then they would perform the presence of the Creator in a very important, special way. Then later he would send his son and destroy his own instructions. As the very Son said, he did not come then to destroy the instructions. He completed the first in order then for the second. When we read Hebrews, it's not a change of replacement, it is completion of. The Messiah then, he came and he completed the spring feast, described in Leviticus the 23rd chapter, from the first verse through the 21st. Thus then the Hebrews trained these feasts for more than 1,000 years, until he came and he completed the spring feast. But what is then the test of a person? Well, try to read the holy instructions and then try to talk of tabernacling. Record your own voice. Try to read the instructions and then come up with a video of your own. It's not only finding fault in someone else's life, pointing fingers. Always think of yourself higher than somebody else. Simply try to read the holy manuscripts of the originals. Try to understand tabernacling and then do a video of your own. If you want to find enemy in yourself, you can be sure of it, you will find him in you. I had to find my own evils. So as did YershiYAhu and the Shilishim, as known as the apostles. Each of them, they had to deal with their own evils. Do you know what's the distinction? Some people, they get lazy and they don't talk of tabernacling. Of course, they don't want to upset the evil in them. Thus they are lukewarm. They prefer believing a Savior that simply eliminated the instructions and gave them license to sin. They should try it. Study the instructions. Read from the Hebrew. And then try to come up with a video. And study it daily. Let's verify how far they go studying it. Because criticizing, they are experts. So then, the burden of Arabia then is the focus of YershiYAhu the prophet, the 21st chapter. As we understand, there are no chapters. Now again, if you are a person from churches believing shoes of Hebrews were then never worn out, if you believe then there is wife of Lot became a column of salt, if you believe some sort of a spirit that makes you a temple, then when you read YershiYAhu, the 21st chapter, you won't understand it. In fact, you get angry with those that do understand and try to explain. always searching for more and never able to become complete. What does it mean then, the burden of Arabia? Directly related with Zechariah. You find then these understanding related with there is the first bomb and the second. When you read a Revelation from the original manuscripts, try to understand. The original manuscripts of Revelation were destroyed. The enemy was so furious with the Revelation, he made sure every scrap of it was destroyed. Then what we have, unfortunately, is a junky translation of Greco-Roman, and then later on became a translation from the Greco-Roman and then became Hebrew again. Absolutely nonsense. But then the autumn feast can be filtered through the prophets. You don't have to have a revelation. What is required for the revelation is simply the prophets. Mostly what the Messiah already said, it was already completed. Time spent is already a couple thousand years. We are during the time of the restoration, and then the end is autumn feast. Completely found in the prophets. The bird of Arabia. So then, as we read, then this chapter, then an understanding of YershiYAhu was given. Later on, you find then a link with the spirit of Babylon. That's when we then make a reference of Daniel. Though Arabia has obviously a direct link with Ishmael, yet Ishmael must deal with the everyday Gentile world. Speaking from tabernacling, the aim of every person should be tabernacling. That's where salvation is coming from, tabernacling. If you don't study tabernacling, you're not saved. If you don't study tabernacling, you don't understand Revelation. If you don't understand Revelation, how can you understand the prophets? Ignorance won't save you at the end. That's why the Messiah then decided of having his people, not only the 12, but entire cities were built, preserving what Moshe had first taught. We read Hebrews because those are the instructions of the second tabernacle services. Not a replacement, but completion of. And then people always waiting for something else. Nobody wants to put their life on the line. Nobody understands how many of these Hebrews gave their lives so then people would read the rest of it. Always believing some sort of a Savior that would give them whatsoever they want. How many thousands of these junky pastors there are, only sucking your money, exercising evil authorities that doesn't exist. Economies of the world are going through many troubles. Some examples: the country of Brazil is ruined. The economy is done, it's finished. The only way of saving this country is the system of China. It's the only hope. This month, there are plans of opening up then Dragon Mart in Cancun, Mexico. The first phase of Dragon Mart. Daniel the 11th chapter explains the kingdom of the East. Dragonic period, precision. In the Brazilian government, there are so many thieves in the government, but so many of them. And then they don't realize Portuguese-speaking nations are only 11. As Dragon Mart opens this month, what is it going to do with the economy of the US? Further down. In order for some sort of a compensation, what are they going to do with the USD? They're going to raise the price to make up for the shortage. Daniel the prophet was extremely simple when he was explaining the economies of the world. He spoke of the kingdom of the East. He spoke of a system based from his own. A system yet coming. So then, let's try to understand this factor. Daniel himself was then the chief top of a system of his time. When he was speaking of Daniel the 11th chapter, the king would not give a rip of the God of Daniel. Yahweh was the least of the concern of the king of the time. He didn't care, because there was so much prosperity coming from the hand of Daniel. The king would not give a rip. Because people are so religious and so ignorant, they tend to globalize the Creator, as it was explained before. When there are some recognitions of the Creator, is for a very short time, until prosperity comes, and then forget it. It's always like this. You start a job, as long as you are producing and then you are working in benefit of the company, where then the others are only watching, then it's fine. However, when you are then in a position of certainty, then they begin to take advantage of. It's always like this. When the Rias received then the system in his hands, he did acknowledge that Daniel had a great system. And because he was prosperous as far as economy is concerned, then, the God of Daniel wouldn't give a rip. As long as money was coming in, nations were linking up with the system of Daniel, then so be it. It's always like this. Daniel was there doing his work, making many transactions amongst the nations, and Darius was receiving from it. However, when you read the extra writings of Daniel in Apocrypha, Bel and the Dragon is the precision. Bel is the rest of religions, or the rest of the world. What did those scoundrels were talking of, or speaking of? Oh, but don't you believe in Baal being a god? They wanted to take Daniel's position. As he linked up the nations on behalf of the kingdom, they wanted his position. And Daniel simply said, Baal is no god. And this serpent they were speaking of, they were so giant that he made then, he concocted fibers with some sort of a pitch, threw in the mouth of the snake over there and died. They wanted Daniel's position. They want to be the linkers. The economy of Brazil is ruined. Let's then observe what's going on as far as then this election coming on the 5th of October of this year. The president of this country does not even have the courage of going public on live television for debate. She has no courage. In fact, were the reporters and the auditors went after her, and she simply said, when she made a decision of buying that Pasadena refinery over there, she made a mistake. She enriched the pockets of thousands. The price of the refinery at the time 06, only for the half of it, half of the price of the entire refinery, was 50 times 6 digits. They were involved with the 1.2 times 12 digits. Now, when a person is a president of a company, if you do this kind of thing, he would be fired the next day. But because of the system of printing out more money festival, then from the backside, then they get the money. They don't give a rip for the creator or anybody else. So try to understand, God is not involved with the problems of the nations. His involvement is directly with tabernacling. Tabernacling is neglected, the world then is lost. Upon death, straight down. Then we find the returning of the holy cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. As we can read this, YershiYAhu chapter 1:8 makes a reference of the holy cities. Revelation chapter 1:8 gives us a portion of the Messiah then explaining sections of his own people come out of this system and then return and resume tabernacling. This is what the Messiah is saying. The situation is, each person must bear fruit. Only expecting somebody else to do it does not do it. If you can't read the instructions and then come up with your own understanding and saying it out loud, then you are not saved. But people always want something else, never satisfied. Yet upon death, straight down. Then people go to those junky churches, and then the scoundrel over there in front, oh, because I have to be responsible, because God is always watching the kind of work you do. He's not watching it. He is aware of it. But if you do or if you don't, if you understand tabernacling, then the Creator is involved. If you are not, He's not. So when the Savior said only a few people are going then at the end be saved, only a few, now you know why. From every word the Holy Creator spoke through Moses until the last word spoken by the prophets, those who do like these instructions as tabernacling, and they can explain revelation based from the prophets, these people are saved. The rest of them are not. Now you understand why so few. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.